In this Football Manager 2020 experiment, we're going to find out if the continent of Africa can dominate world football. So using the FM20 editor, I've changed a few things about the nations that make up the African Football Confederation. I suppose the key thing that I have changed is the youth rating. I've maxed it out to 200, so all of these African nations are more likely to create world-class players, wonder kids. But it's an alternative parallel universe, this, because I have actually made these nations very rich. So the economic factor and FA financial power, they're up to 20, which is the maximum. I've made them all developed states rather than developing states. The football importance for each nation is set to very important, and all of these nations are full members of the worldwide governing body as well. The other thing I've altered on the editor are the clubs in Africa within all of these African nations. So for example, this club in Algeria, I've given them perfect facilities, so 20 on training, youth coaching, youth facilities, youth recruitment and youth importance. And financially, although I haven't changed the balance of any of the clubs, I've given every single club an underwriter sugar daddy, which will mean he will cover any costs. It's expensive to have these perfect facilities, so the underwriter will just cover the costs, the annual costs of having these expensive facilities, and he might pump some money in as well to help with all these clubs. So we're going to find out how all of these changes will have an impact on African football. I've done a few of these experiments in the past. I've not done for a while, but people seem to enjoy the spreadsheets that I put together for this. So I've listed out all of the African nations, and throughout this experiment we're going to see how many times these nations can win the World Cup. African Cup of Nations, of course, one of these is going to win every single African Cup of Nations because there's no non-African teams in that competition, of course. We've also got the other African competition, which is just consisting of African-based players. The Under-20 World Cup, we've got the African Champions League, and then individual player awards like Ballon d'Or. There's like 3 different World Player of the Year awards on Football Manager. And we'll also keep an eye on the world ranking. So I'm going to input the starting ranking of all of these nations, and then we'll have a look to see what their peak position is throughout the experiment. Also, World Cup wise, I'm going to note down how many times each nation qualifies or reaches the group stage and gets to other stages of the competition as well. So I hope you're looking forward to this experiment. There's probably going to be 2 or 3 or 4 parts to it as we holiday into the future. And as always, if you do enjoy it, please leave a like, that'd be much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. As I'm just talking, I'm just showing you proof of the changes. For some reason, corporate facilities doesn't always change. I think that depends on other factors as well. But as you can see, perfect facilities, an underwriter, sugar daddy, and that'll be the case for all these nations. Maybe in the comment section below you can let me know who you think's going to do the best. I suppose the favourites, it could be South Africa for the simple fact that they do have a loadable league on the game, which I have loaded. But of course, all these clubs still exist. They'll take part in the African Cup of Nations. Not African Cup of Nations, the African Champions League and that sort of thing. Cameroon could do quite well, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, the nations that have traditionally qualified for the World Cup. I won't be surprised if Reunion struggle, because I think a lot of their players will be able to play for France as well. For example, Dimitri Payet was born in Reunion, an island, a French island off the coast of Africa. So the best players will probably be snapped up by France, I would imagine. Anyway, I'm going to input all of these world rankings into the Excel spreadsheet, and we're going to continue a few years, probably to the end of the first World Cup, and see what happens. So as you can see, I've filled in the world rankings of all 57 African nations. Senegal and Tunisia both start off at the top, joint 24th in the world rankings. And we go all the way down basically to the bottom 3 nations in the world, Mayotte, Reunion and Zanzibar. So I've simulated until the end of the 2022 World Cup, which of course took place in Qatar, a Winter World Cup, and I think it's the last World Cup that only has 8 groups, with the second round quarter-final. The other World Cups after this point I think have a third round and multiple groups, so there will actually be the opportunity for more African nations to qualify for the World Cup. So Ivory Coast actually managed to get through from their group. As you can see, spoiler at the top, Spain did win this World Cup, so we didn't see an African nation win it, unfortunately. But it's early days. Morocco also qualified, finishing on 4 points. We saw Cameroon finish 3rd in the group. Really unfortunate not to qualify there, because Poland and Argentina also got 6 points. And then Gabon managed to get through with 5 points ahead of Switzerland. Ghana finished 3rd, and I think that's it. So we move on to the second round, where we saw Ivory Coast defeat Serbia 1-0. I don't know if we'll be able to see these games. Yes, we can. Pepe with the goal. The Arsenal player, of course. So he's, of course, one of the star players. We're already 3 years into the game, almost 4 years into the game. So we might have seen some wonder kids come through already. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Gabon unfortunately lost 1-0 against Croatia. So that's it, isn't it? Going through to the quarter-final was Ivory Coast. And they unfortunately lost on penalties against Mexico. So this was the team, the Ivory Coast team. So let's have a look at Ivory Coast. Then 22nd in the world rankings. They've certainly moved up quite significantly during this save. And I've put the potential ability and current ability, which is scored out of 200 on Football Manager for those of you that are new to the game. So the higher the rating, current ability wise, that's how good they are now. But they've of course got potential. Although after the age of about 21, 22, 23, it becomes difficult for them to reach that potential. So for example, Kessler did have potential of 169, but he's 10 off that. He's not going to reach that because he's 26 years old. Pepe, decent current ability. So you can just put into perspective, for example, Sahar, 156 current ability, and we all know how good he is. So it's quite rare to have a player reach plus 170, 175. When you get to those sorts of figures, you're basically a world-class player. So they don't have any exceptionally talented players, but they've got a good team. And let's look at the youth team to see who's coming through. So they've certainly got a wonder kid in Boubacar Boly. 3 caps already for Ivory Coast, but doesn't look like he went to the World Cup. Playing for Williamsville Athletic Club in Ivory Coast. You only have a 1.5 star reputation, trying to find the word, national reputation, so they're not a very big club at all. So he needs to try and find a move probably to Europe to try and reach that potential. They've also got someone called Fabrice Sonogo, who's 19, and he's already in France. He started in France, so that's good news for him. So hopefully he'll be able to push on and reach that 174 potential. So 2 decent players in the youth team already. No one really of note in the under 20s, but probably the best ones are pushed up to the under 23s automatically anyway. And in some cases, in some nations, we'll see them straight away get into the first team, I'm sure. Let's just skip through and have a look at some of the other. Oh wow, this chap, 182 potential for Lesotho. Only 19. He's a winger. He's playing for a team in Lesotho, so he needs to get out of that club really to reach that potential. Some players might get trapped. That's the problem. They might not be able to get work permits. There might be a few issues there. So I'm just going to skip through. Journey, 175 potential. Let's have a look at him. 14 caps, 6 goals for his country already. He has moved to China. Interesting move. Gone for the money maybe. Madagascar. Wow, look at this name. Randrianantanminime. He's got serious potential actually. Already 6 goals in 12 games for his country. 187 potential. Really, really good player. So they've produced a couple of decent looking players, and they're already in the first team, of course. Malawi have a really good centre back with 181 potential, and a good right back with 172. Was he playing in Mexico? No. There's a team that sounds similar to a Mexican club. He's playing in Malawi. So these players need to get out. Although, to be fair, of course, we've improved the facilities. Whether they have very good coaches, I guess it's unlikely. So that's the other thing. They might have really good facilities, but they probably don't have particularly good coaches, unless these clubs have been able to attract really good coaches. So it might stunt their growth staying at their clubs, even though there are good facilities there. This guy's good. Mohamed Dembele, 187 potential. So we've already seen some really good potentials from these nations, haven't we? Morocco, I suppose they're more likely to have them in the under-23 team. Yep, someone with 180 potential. Already got 3 caps for his country though. Mozambique, not anyone there. Namibia, 177 for Niger. Malik, he's a real player actually, and he's not reached his potential. So that's interesting. He's definitely a real player because he's not a regen. Maybe look for this guy in the game because he's got serious potential. And at the start of the game, he's about 20, I suppose. That's interesting. Nigeria, they've got some good players. Okoro, that is a familiar name for me with my Regen Rovers save from last year. Legend. They've probably got some good players. No, they don't. Not really. Oh, here we go. 192 potential. A striker. He's got serious potential. It's the best we've seen yet. He is already 18 and only 109 current ability, so he's got a lot of growth there to make up. And then in Reunion, some of these players might get nicked by France. I have a feeling they could do. If we have a look at this player. Oh, he's a real life player, in fact. But as you can see, other nationalities French, so he could in theory play for France. This is going to be an intriguing experiment, I can tell. I just have that feeling about it. It's going to be so interesting looking at the growth of these players. This could be the most fun thing, actually, seeing the actual players individually and whether they can reach that potential. So keep an eye on some of these names that we have seen. Kalidou Koulibaly. Oh, it's Koulibaly, of course, the Napoli guy. So he's the best player in Senegal already. I wonder if they've got any players in the youth teams. 159 potential. 190. There we go. Another player with 190 potential. Saliou Dia. So we've got 290 potential players already, haven't we? There's a decent player for Seychelles. 167 potential. The Seychelles flag, by the way, I think is my favourite flag in the world. Google it. It's beautiful. Mohamed Karoma for Sierra Leone has 183 potential. Fascinating. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly skip through if there's anyone that's got over 190. There's a few 180s in here. So they're producing players. It's just whether they can get to reach their potential, essentially. Because that's the tricky thing. Because they need to probably move to a European club that actually plays. Here we go. Here's the best one. Burundi have a defender with 197 potential. The other thing is whether the European scouts are actually scouting in a country like Burundi, but if he's playing for his national team, he should be noticed quite easily. But this guy's the best one yet, but he's still playing in Burundi, so he needs, I'm maybe doing a disservice, but realistically he's going to have to move to Europe to reach that potential. I guess this is possible with us improving the clubs. There is a chance that they might be able to reach that potential at these sorts of clubs. Chad have produced a really good player as well. So yeah, really interesting. Here's 191 for Djibouti of all teams. Kenneth as well. What a name. Kenneth Abderrahman. I love that. I love that Djibouti have produced a player of 191 potential and he's called Kenneth. That's great. Where is Salah for Egypt? Is he not playing for them? They've produced a really good youngster here. But where is he? He's playing for Liverpool still. He's 30 years old. Has he retired from international duty? But he might have been... he has. He retired in 2021. Far too early. Oh, this is the best one yet. And we're not going to beat that because I don't think you can even get 200 potential. I might be wrong. But Pierre Mbergi has 199 potential. He's 18 years old. He's a goalkeeper. Keep an eye on this guy. Well, I'll have to do it for you. You have absolutely no control over what I show you. 199 potential. He's only worth about £475. Wow, what a player. And then for Guinea, have we seen this chap? I don't think so. How far did we get? Ivory Coast is the team we started with. Here we go. We're back to the start. So there we go. There's some serious players to watch out for in this series already. So we've now whizzed through to the end of the 2026 World Cup, which took place in North America, and it's a different format now. So we'll just scroll down and see how the African nations did. So Morocco managed to qualify again, and they got out of the group stage this time. Senegal topped Group E. There's only 2 games played in the group stage. The Gambia qualified, but unfortunately only 1 point. They've done really well to qualify though, because they started off all the way down here, 172nd, and they're up here now. Their key player, Matar Kundi, 21 years old, attacking midfielder, has only 140 current ability. So he plays for Superstars Academy in the Gambia. He's 21. I think this is an example of a player that isn't going to reach his peak simply because he's still playing in his home nation, unfortunately. But they've done really, really well to qualify for a World Cup. Ivory Coast topped their group with 6 points. Cameroon went through in second place, and South Africa went through with 3 points. Mali qualified but finished on 0 points. Tunisia went through from their group as well with 4 points. Egypt also with 3. Look at how many African nations are competing. It's great. And Angola also qualified and went through from their group. So plenty of teams into the second round. And now this is a bit of there's so much to look at. Senegal beat Denmark 3-2. That's a really good win, actually. Diatta with 2 goals. He's a real life player. And the other one was Sarr, of course. Plays for Watford. Then we had an all-African clash between Cameroon and Ivory Coast where Pepe scored another World Cup goal. He's now 31, still playing for Arsenal, 98 caps for his country. The other 2 players to score, another real-life player, Kouame, and Conan, another real-life player. So they're still dominated by real-life players, Ivory Coast. Really good 3-0 win. And then South Africa unfortunately lost in penalties against Portugal. Tunisia beat Turkey 2-0. Good stuff. A regen, managed to score 24 goals in 42 games. He looks like a really good striker actually. Plays for Benfica and he's got 172 current ability. Really good player. And the other player to score was Jamal, another regen, 21 goals. They've got two decent strikers here. This one's still playing in Tunisia by the looks of it. 133 current ability, not a bad player. Egypt went out against Mexico 2-0. Angola lost 2-1 against England, but to score against England, not bad. Rafa with a goal. He's a real-life player apparently, centre-back. Impressive performance from Angola. And I think that's it. So we're into the third round, which is a new round for the World Cup, of course. Senegal lost 3-0 against Czech Republic. Ivory Coast lost against the eventual winners, Brazil. Tunisia beat Italy 2-0 though. Really good stuff. Amdouni with another 2 goals. It was obviously thanks to a red card for Italy as well. But very impressive performance. And that's it. So Tunisia into the quarterfinals, where they unfortunately lost 4-1 against Spain. But Amdouni with another goal. He must have finished high up on the goal scoring list. Third place playoff, Spain beat England, and the final was won by Brazil, beating Belgium 4-0. Top goal scorer, he's not on there. We've got a player getting 10 goals, but there's more rounds now, of course. Amdouni down here, joint 5th place, 4 goals. Not a bad performance from him. So let's just have a look at Tunisia as a whole. They're up to 18th in the world rankings, which is not bad. They dropped off, and then they've come back again, because they started off, of course, in 24th. But they must have a decent team. Amdouni, 172 current ability. 140. They've not got many exceptional players, but they've used their tools well, haven't they? The players that they do have. And let's just have a quick look at the youth team, see if there's anyone coming through. Doesn't look like there is, so maybe the future isn't particularly bright for Tunisia. So you're probably wondering what's happened to the goalkeeper with 199 potential. He's ended up moving to the States. He's moved to Atlanta United. 22 years old now, for 750k eventually. Just 2 years ago in the end. Unfortunately, he hasn't reached that potential, but he's still a very good goalkeeper. 162 current ability is impressive, but I was hoping he'd reach that 199. It just hasn't happened. I have put another sheet on the spreadsheet to include key players. So of course we've got 199 potential goalkeeper. Amdouni's done very well at the first World Cup. So yeah, I'll add to this sort of significant players that we see doing well or have really high potential. Let's have a look at some of the other competitions then. So the African Cup of Nations, we've had 3 since the start of this save. Senegal, Algeria and Tunisia the winners, with Algeria, Senegal and Ivory Coast the runners-up. Senegal currently 14th in the world rankings. Of course, they have Mane. He's the real star of Africa right now. He's 34 years old now though. 46 goals in 127 games for his country. Moved to Atletico Madrid when his contract ran out at Liverpool, but he's still their key player. If we look at current ability, he is still the best player. He would have had better current ability than this at one point, but of course he's 34 now and it has dropped off. They've still got Koulibaly, who has moved from Napoli to Valencia. He's 35 years old now. They've still got Ismail Sarr. He's only 28 to be fair, but they do seem to be focusing on these the real life players still. Essa Diop has ended up playing for Senegal. The West Ham guy is French, but moved to his second nationality. So Senegal have done well so far. Algeria, 31st in the world rankings, also have some real-life players that are quality. For example, their key man, Benacar, who actually plays for Man City, moved for £53 million. But there is a player with real potential, although he's 22. 153 current ability, 194 potential. I don't think he's going to reach that because he's 22 now, but he's moved to Man United, so I guess there's a chance that perhaps he'll improve a bit more because he is a defensive midfielder, so he's in a position where as he gets older he'll continue to improve, but I don't think he's going to reach that 194. He needed to move earlier in his career. And then of course we've looked at Tunisia, who've done very well as well. So if we go down to the other one, which is CHAN, the African Championship of Nations, which is just features players that play in Africa for African club teams. So we've had 4. Egypt beat Burkina Faso in the first final. Cameroon beat Senegal. Ivory Coast beat Morocco, and then Nigeria beat Morocco. So Morocco a little bit unlucky, 34th in the world rankings right now. Lost 2 finals in a row. Egypt, of course, we've had a look at them. Salah not playing for them anymore, but their key player is playing for Liverpool, a regen, Noor El Sayed, a striker who has moved for 149 million pounds. Moved from Pyramids, great name, to Marseille and then to Liverpool. 182 current ability. This guy we have to add to the spreadsheet because he's really good. Moving on to Cameroon, have also won this competition. 20th in the world rankings. They've also got very decent goalkeeper who has 164 current ability, 192 potential. Actually, slightly better current ability than our other chap who had 199 potential. He's moved to Saudi Arabia. Interesting move for him, but he's a quality goalkeeper, easily good enough. He'd be one of the best Premier League goalkeepers if he moved to England. Top player though, according to this, is a real life player, Onana, another goalkeeper. So they've got two really good goalkeepers here. Ivory Coast still going strong, 13th in the world rankings, probably the highest African nation if we have a look at the entire list. Yes, they are. We're only just above Senegal in 14th, Tunisia in 18th. We've got Cameroon in 20th. If we just have a quick look actually at just Africa, this is the current situation. You can see down on the left hand side there the rank and then the points on the right hand side. So we've still got Zanzibar, Mayotte and Reunion at the bottom, with Seychelles and Eritrea not doing very well, Somalia. There's still lots of nations not doing particularly well, and they probably won't do very well unless they happen to produce a wonder kid. Problem with these three nations is I think they can have their players nicked. That's the problem with a lot of African nations, I'd imagine. There's places in Europe that used to, of course, control these nations over 100 years ago, or less than that in some cases, and there might be like second nationality rules where these players can move to Europe much easier and end up playing for those European nations, of course. So that is the one flaw, I suppose, with this. There is the option for some players to play for European countries, and they might miss out, which is a bit of a shame. But it's just part and parcel of this experiment, I suppose. Nigeria, 30th in the world rankings. I think still dominated by real life players by the looks of it. Victor Osimhen playing for Everton, and Ndidi still playing for Leicester. Has 100 caps for his country. This chap's real as well, apparently. We've still got Samuel Okoro, the goalkeeper. Love it. I love that he's in goal as well. Like David Okoro from our Region Rover save. 149 current ability. Not bad. The Under-20 World Cup. Interesting runners-up here in 2023. Cameroon. Excellent. They managed to reach the final. Unfortunately lost against France. That's good. So they've obviously produced some decent youngsters who managed to compete 3 years ago at that particular World Cup. So that's nice to see as well. And moving on to club football, the African Champions League. Now, I actually boosted the reputation of the African Cup of Nations to the maximum. So it's basically the same reputation as the World Cup. And then the African Champions League also to the same as the European Champions League, the maximum reputation. So that could in effect encourage players to stay in Africa because they know that they can win the African Champions League, which is a high reputation competition. That might actually be detrimental because players might stick around and then not reach their potential. That's possible, but that's what I decided to do, just to try and increase the possibility of wonder kids coming through and players improving, etc. So Orlando Pirates managed to win the first one from South Africa, but since then Zamalek have dominated 4 wins in a row. They're an Egyptian team, 4-star reputation. That seems to have increased, I think. So they won 4 in a row, but then since then Sundowns from South Africa have won it. And most interestingly of all, Canon Sportif de Yaoundé, a second division team from Cameroon. How did they win the Champions League then if they're from the second division? That is a bit weird. Maybe they won a cup, I don't know. But that is a pretty remarkable achievement considering that we can't look at the divisions because they're not loaded. We don't have the ability to see them. But the fact that they won the African Champions League is pretty impressive. A team from Ghana has been runners-up a couple of times. They're in the Premier Division in Ghana, 3-star reputation team, so they're pretty good. So that's intriguing. Zamalek seem to be the stars at the moment. So let's just have a look at their squad. So they've got some decent players for an African team. I think 130 current ability, 129. Lots of players with 120s. So yeah, some good players there. So it's now 2030, and although we haven't seen an African nation win the World Cup, we have seen a surprise because Turkey have won the World Cup, and I don't know why. Maybe they've just produced a golden generation of players. These things happen on Football Manager. These things happen in real life. But I love that. I love that we've had an unexpected winner. It's a shame it's not an African nation, but anyone from Turkey watching, I'm sure you're celebrating right now. Let's go back to the group stage though and have a look to see how our African teams did. They unfortunately didn't reach the final, but if we skip through, Tanzania qualified but finished bottom. Angola qualified again but finished bottom. Nigeria qualified in second place. Ivory Coast qualified in second place. Algeria finished bottom of their group. South Africa won their group. Tunisia finished bottom this time despite reaching the quarterfinal last time. Senegal finished second behind the eventual winners Turkey. The Gambia qualified again but finished bottom. And Guinea qualified top of their group above Brazil. Very impressive. Moving on to the second round. Nigeria lost 5-0 against Italy. Ivory Coast beat Sweden to go through 1-0. Kesse still playing. 139 goals in 174 games for his country. That is very impressive. South Africa thrashed New Zealand 4-0. Chitolo with a couple goals. Great name. Victor. 88 caps for his country. Decent player. Schmidt as well scored. Plays for Arsenal. And Lamini. So South Africa, I think, have a decent team. He's playing for Real Madrid. Let's just go down. Senegal lost against Belgium 3-2. And is that everyone? Guinea lost 4-1 against USA. Third round then we saw Ivory Coast lose 5-0 against Italy. They're thrashing everyone. South Africa beat Belgium 2-1. That is very impressive. Bonging, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. He scored a goal. He's a centre-back. And Chitolo scored again. So South Africa march on to the quarter-final stage where they beat Portugal 1-0. They're into the semi-finals, the first team to get to the semis. Oh, there's Dlamini, central midfielder, with the winning goal against Portugal. They've produced a player called Shabalala. Love it. Or Shabalala. Shabalala. Yeah, there we go. Right back. So into the semi-finals, they lost. Italy really were destroying everyone, weren't they? 4-1. Khumalo with the goals, a left winger, but Italy just too strong, unfortunately. But I'm really surprised that they lost the final against Turkey. Third place, they won it. South Africa finished third at the World Cup thanks to goals from Jabba, a left back, Ali, a defensive midfielder, and Zungu with a 91st minute goal, another central midfielder. Excellent. We'll have a look at South Africa in a second because they've got a really good team right now. And then the final, of course, Turkey. How did Italy, after thrashing everyone, that is a real... They had two injuries. One injury and a red card, so that obviously impacted upon them. Oh, but I'm so pleased for South Africa. That is really good. 15th in the world rankings. They've really pushed up, haven't they? This was their World Cup performance, I suppose. Let's have a look at the team then. So, current ability wise, they've got someone with 168 current ability, currently playing for Real Madrid, central midfielder, moved for £85 million. I know he's moved 2 big money transfers. He's played for 5 different teams already, as you can see there. So he's an exceptional player. I think we'll add him to the spreadsheet. And then there's someone with 197 potential. He's not going to reach that. He's on 167 and he's 25. But Zulu, a right winger, moved to Atletico Madrid for £99 million after Bayern Munich bought him for 1.5. That is incredible profit. But I guess he just didn't leave Orlando Pirates soon enough to benefit from the Bayern Munich facilities and coaching, etc. So yeah, that's probably why he's only managed to reach 167. But that is some serious potential there. But they've got a really good squad of players. You can see why they managed to finish third at the World Cup. Players playing for Arsenal, Monaco, Dortmund, another player playing for Arsenal, Lazio, so PSG player in there as well. So really, really good stuff from South Africa. They've done well. I'm just going to have a look at some of the key players that I've managed to find. This chap playing for Spurs, 181 current ability, moved to Real Madrid, Dortmund, Real Madrid for 90 million, and most recently to Spurs. He's a really, really good player. They've also got someone playing for Juventus, Claudio Costa, who looks pretty good. Another good. They seem to be producing lots of good goalkeepers, these African nations. Then for Chad, we've got Fabrice Jingabe. He might be the chap we saw at the start, actually, because he's got 100. He's really good. 189 current ability, and he's reached that. He's reached his potential. That he had. And he's moved to PSG. So he started at Gazelle, moved to Brazil, moved to Spain, moved to Barcelona, moved to PSG for £92 million. So he's really good. Is he the best player yet in terms of current ability? I think he might be. Really good player for Chad. They're currently rated 177th in the world rankings. So him alone isn't able to push up this team, unfortunately. But maybe eventually he'll have an impact. Here's another good one, playing for PSG. It's Kenneth. It's Kenneth from Djibouti. Oh, I'm so pleased. He's done really well because he's 191 potential. He's got to 188. He's 26 now. That's pretty close to his potential. One of the best players in the world. And Kenneth, worth £95 million, earning 250k a week at PSG. Moved to Sevilla, then to Liverpool, and then most recently to PSG. What a player. Look at him. What a player. The Real Madrid Egyptian still doing well. In fact, he'd moved to... Wow, look at this. He moved for £149 million to Liverpool and then had a few good years, and now he's moved for £103 million to Real Madrid. This player is exceptional. We'll have to have a look at Ballon d'Or and that sort of thing, but he potentially might have won it. Good player playing for Ethiopia, 180 current ability, right back playing for Real Madrid. So we have really produced some exceptional players that have ended up playing for top teams. The goalkeeper with 199 potential, by the way, has moved to PSG for £9 million, moved to Qatar and then to France. So he's eventually found his way to Europe at the age of 26. Frank Frimpong for Ghana, great name, also playing for PSG. They are attracting all of this African talent. £111 million from Atletico Madrid. He signed him for only £1.5 million from Zamalek. Moving on. Mohamed Kamara for Guinea. Moved to Schalke and then to Barcelona for £73 million. Oh, there's some really good players here. Most nations seem to have one really good player, actually. Fabrice Sanogo for Ivory Coast. Plays for Spurs, signed on a free, but he's really good as well. There's a guy here with 190 potential playing for Barcelona. Unfortunately, hasn't reached that. Edwin Mange, but he's playing for Barcelona, so it just shows you can be good enough with 160 odd current ability to play for Barcelona. It's just trying to take it to the next level and become one of the world's greatest ever players. That is really tough, and it rarely happens, unfortunately. Really good player playing for Libya, 186 current ability, playing for Atletico Madrid, moved for £122 million from Man City. He signed him for quite a significant fee as well. This guy for Mali is pretty good, very good in fact, moved for £81 million to Man City, 180 current ability. Morocco have a player playing for Man City as well, 171 current ability. Oh, here's our second player with 199 potential, but he got nowhere near it. He's 26 years old, 131 current ability. He obviously just wasn't good enough. Well, he was good enough, but he wasn't able to realise that potential because he's got stuck in South Sudan. He didn't leave South Sudan. He played for Nasir for his whole career, one club man. Only 26, but he's not going to grow more than this now. So unfortunately, despite having the ability, the potential to reach 199, be the world's greatest ever player, he didn't reach. Just think about how many people around the world are trapped somewhere. Maybe they've never even kicked a football, but they're born with that 199 potential. And unfortunately, it's never realised. There could be anyone out there, maybe. Maybe it could be you with 199 potential, but you just haven't realised it. Sudan have a good player who's a right back playing for Atletico Madrid, 179 current ability. Swaziland have a really good player playing for Liverpool, moved £124 million from There's some serious money here. This is fantastic. Sifo Dlamini. In fact, we've looked at this guy before, haven't we? He's a really good player. I'm surprised the Gambia have qualified for 2 World Cups. They don't have the greatest team. Look at the current ability, but they've managed to qualify twice. Really impressive stuff from them. It might be that they have a really good manager or something like that. I don't know. Jane Joof is in charge. He's got good man management and motivating, so maybe that helps. Good player playing for Uganda, 175. He's a real life player. Lawrence Kigonia plays for Barcelona. There's actually a decent player playing for Zanzibar. Another goalkeeper, Omar, playing for Wolfsburg, moved for £26 million. Started at PSG, but he's got 4 caps for Zanzibar. I don't think they play many games. And Zimbabwe, not really anyone of note there. And we're back to the start. So there's some really good players in these African nations. So the last 2 winners of the African Cup of Nations, Cameroon and Senegal. Ivory Coast have lost 3 finals in a row, by the way. And then the CHAN, the African Championship of Nations. So how many have we had? We've had 2 since our last show. Tunisia beating Cameroon in the final, and Ivory Coast have managed to win this one. They beat Egypt in the final. There's also the African Under-20 Cup of Nations. These are the winners. So this is a good competition to see possible future stars, I suppose, because Burkina Faso won it twice in a row, but we haven't really featured them, have we? They don't have any particularly outstanding players, but maybe as a team they were very good in their youth. The Under-23 Cup of Nations as well. Takes place every 4 years. Zambia managed to win it. Cameroon and Senegal also have won it. And then we're up to the African Champions League. So Zamalek have continued to win it. So since Canon Yuande surprisingly won it. We saw Enugu Rangers from the Nigerian Premier League manage to win it, beating a team from Tunisia. And then the Tunisia team Sahel managed to win it the following year, beating Orlando Pirates. And Zamalek have won 2 in a row, firstly against a team from Angola, and most recently against a team from Algeria. So Zamalek are definitely dominating. They're up to 4.5-star reputation, and they're rich as well. They've got £12 million in the back. They've still got that sugar daddy. Of course, some of the clubs they might leave. Still perfect facilities, and they are doing really well. I mean, their best player, 141 current ability, a left winger, Egyptian international, looks decent. But yeah, they're certainly dominating the African Champions League, that's for sure. Let's have a look at the World Golden Ball then. Here we go. We've had some dominance already. So we'll go back to the start. So Ronaldo, Aguero, Messi, Dybala. No surprise winners. There's a few interesting winners in there, but no massive surprises. Mbappe then won it twice in a row before Mohamed Camara from Guinea has won it 3 years in a row. Look at that. That is special. So this chap, a striker for Barcelona, signed for £73 million from Schalke, has ended up winning the Ballon d'Or 3 years in a row. He's the best player that we've seen, isn't he? Because he's got 190 current ability. With that 190 potential, he's the only one to reach that figure. What a player. How many is he going to end up winning? We'll have to keep an eye on this award. I presume he's managed to win the World Player of the Year as well, because it's very similar. Yep, as you can see, 3 in a row. And then you've got the Footballer of the Year, which sometimes is a little bit different, but he's also managed to win that 3 times in a row as well. I don't think there's been any other Africans. And then the Under-21 Footballer of the Year. Have we seen any African players win this? I don't think so. Swiss, Croatian, Brazilian, German. So no one's won that. Imagine the Team of the Year will have a few of our guys in there. There's Camera up front. I think that might be it for the time being, though. Goalkeeper of the Year, maybe. Oh, here we go. An Angolan goalkeeper, Claudia Costa, for Juventus, who has 176 current ability, has ended up winning Goalkeeper of the Year. That's impressive. This is the current situation with the world rankings. So there's no African teams in the top 10 still. But if we have a look, the top team is Ivory Coast with 14, South Africa next. And if I just scroll the way down, we've got still Zanzibar at the bottom, Mayotte and Reunion as well. Not much change at the bottom. It would be nice to see someone like Chad just suddenly zoom up because of their world-class player. But I guess it's probably unlikely. They need to win a lot of games because they're starting from a low points base as well. It's cumulatively, they need to be able to be quite consistent over the years, don't they? Look at this. Zamalek are all the way up here because they've gone up to 4.5-star worldwide reputation. They are really zooming. I mean, in fact, they've jumped a whole 1.5 stars in quite recent years. That is quite incredible growth from them. They might actually end up producing some serious talent for the Egyptian national team as a result. And also, they might nick all of the other talent around Africa before moving them on to Europe. And in doing so, they'll earn quite a bit of money that way as well. So, yeah, they've really done very well, haven't they, in this experiment so far? So I think I'll end this part 1 here. I mean, I don't want these videos to be hours long, but I could look at this for hours. I really could. So I did say 3 or 4 parts, but this might go on a bit longer. It depends how interested you are. You might think, oh, I'm being too nitty gritty, looking at things in far too much detail. So do let me know. Well, I'll probably record part 2 before uploading part 1. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. I will show the spreadsheet to end things. But I think so far South Africa have been the most successful team. They've managed to reach the semi-final of the World Cup and finish 3rd. Have they won the African Cup of Nations? I can't remember. But in terms of World Cup, which is the main competition, they have done very well. They're also 15th in the world rankings. They've produced they've not produced like a world-class player, so to speak, but they've produced lots of very good players, whereas most of the nations have produced one world-class player and the rest of the team is maybe a little bit average. So this is actually a better way to win things, by producing lots of players with over 150 current ability, as opposed to maybe producing one player that has serious potential. Or, for example, Sudan, Abdallah, 179 current ability, but below that, there's no one with 150, 160. So that's the problem for them, I suppose, relying on 1-star player. we can end on something positive as well. I've just had a look at the Under-20 World Cup, and Cameroon beat Spain in the most recent final, with Senegal finishing third. So there's some real hope for African teams if they can replicate the success at youth level at full international level. We might see the likes of Cameroon winning a World Cup soon. That'd be really good. Of course, they finished third and first. Senegal have finished third as well. So yeah, part 2, we might see a World Cup winner from Africa, which would be magnificent. Let's round off this part 1 by looking at the spreadsheet then. So I've inputted the peak world ranking for each nation. Ivory Coast ended up managing to break the top 10 very briefly, but they've managed to reach the highest peak of any nation. We've got Cameroon, Senegal and Tunisia reaching 14th, with South Africa 15th. Some nations just haven't managed to improve at all. Quite a few have actually gone down, so their peak is actually their starting point. If we look at the ranking difference though, the biggest improvement is from the Gambia, going up 116 places. That is quite remarkable growth. Liberia have also done well. Angola have done particularly well. And of course, South Africa have also been very successful. But there's a few nations that have done really well with their growth over the past sort of 11 years since the start of the experiment. Then moving on to competition, Senegal have won the most Africa Cup of Nations with 2 wins. Algeria, Cameroon and Tunisia are the other winners. Then we've got the Chan, where Ivory Coast have won this competition twice. Cameroon, Tunisia, Egypt and Nigeria, the winners of that. Cameroon, of course, have also won the Under-20 World Cup. And then Champions League wins. Zamalek from Egypt have won it 6 times. So Egypt are at the top there, with South Africa winning it twice. Cameroon, Tunisia and Nigeria have also had teams win the African Champions Leagues. And then, of course, the only winners of the Ballon d'Or, World Player of the Year and Footballer of the Year, we've had one player from Guinea win it 3 times, each competition, each award 3 times. Looking at the World Cup in a bit more detail, South Africa of course managed to finish 3rd once. They've also reached the second round as well. Ivory Coast have done particularly well. They've been consistent, reaching the knockout stages 3 times. The only team to do that. They've managed to get to the quarterfinal and round 3 twice. Tunisia have also reached the quarterfinal stage. Senegal have reached round 3 and round 2 once. There's a few teams that have reached round 2, as you can see there. Angola doing really well. And there was a few surprises with the group stage. The Gambia getting to the World Cup twice is really impressive. Tanzania have also qualified, Mali, Angola. So yeah, it's great. I'm pleased there's a few different nations that have managed to qualify. Hopefully we'll see more variety as we progress through the years as well. So we'll end it there. Thank you for watching part 1 of this African Football Manager 2020 experiment. If you are looking forward to part 2, then please hit that like button. But until next time, enjoy FM20. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you very soon.